Ready? Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. You gotta sing too. You need this?
Want me to sing?
Let's try it again. You there, Chad?
I'll try to. Yeah, I'll try to help. Sure.
All right, you can sing. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Chad, I think there's a bit of a delay, so you won't be able to sing along with us. Sorry.
No problem.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Shodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Mishnapad Paramahamsa Bhagavad-gita Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavad-gita Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. On this third day of January 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 4, entitled The Transcendental Knowledge, text number 15 on page 203. Evam. No? I'll say, you say. Yep. You have two books. Okay. You got it? Page 203? 203. Now I say we're going to go through word by word for the verse, and then we'll chant it. Okay, so I'll say you say. Evam gyatva kritam karma purvair api mumukshubihi kuru karmaiva tasmat tvam purvai purvataram kritam evam gyatva kritam karma purvair api mumukshubihi kuru karmaiva tasmat tvam purvai purvataram kritam evam gyatva kritam karma purvai api mumukshubihi kuru karmaiva tasmat tvam purvai purvataram kritam evam gyatva kritam karma purvai api mumukshubihi kuru karmaiva tasmat tvam purvai purvataram kritam. Does anyone want to try it? You don't have to. Chad, you there?
Hare Krishna.
Give it a try.
Alright. Evam natva kritam karma
Evam gyatva kritam karma
pravara api mumukshubihi
purvair api mumukshubihi
kuru karmaiva tasmat tvam
kuru karmaiva tasmat tvam
purvai purvataram kritam
purvai purvataram kritam. Word by words. Evam, thus, gyatva, knowing well, kritam, was performed, karma, work, purvai, by past authorities, api, indeed, mumukshubihi, who attained liberation. Kuru, just perform, karma, prescribed duty, eva, certainly, tasmat, therefore, tvam, you, purvai, by the predecessors, purvataram, in ancient times, kritam, as performed. Translation. Lord Krishna says, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, wait a minute. Sorry. Hare Krishna. All right, let me try one more time. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, all the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Okay, I'm going to read the previous verse, translation, because Krishna refers to it here. Okay, the previous verse says, there is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruit of reactions of work. And then all the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Purport. There are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these persons. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the line of Krishna consciousness for a gradual cleansing process, following the regulative principles of devotional service. Those who are already cleansed of the impurities may continue to act in the same Krishna consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and therefore thereby be benefited. Foolish persons or neophytes in Krishna consciousness often want to retire from activities without having knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Arjuna's desire to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord. One need only know how to act. To retire from the activities of Krishna consciousness and sit aloof, making a show of Krishna consciousness, is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. Arjuna is here advised to act in Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of the Lord's previous disciples, such as the sun god Vibhisvan, as mentioned herein before. The Supreme Lord knows all his past activities, as well as those of persons who acted in Krishna consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the sun god, who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons engaged in the discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, what's being explained here is basically how one can live in this world, perform activities, and not incur any karmic debt. What I mean by that is when we perform fruitive activities, you have to understand Prabhupada's language. Fruitive, if you look in the dictionary, it means producing a fruit. But what he means by that is that you desire a fruit for your own enjoyment, or your own, whatever it means, reasons, rather than doing it for a transcendental reason. The whole point of Krishna consciousness is to reorient our calculation of how to live and how to work for our ultimate benefit. Where generally people work for the benefit of this body, for the benefit of their mind, their own emotions, they're all self-centered. This is called the false ego. False ego means a false sense of self, who we are. And that's the first lesson of Krishna consciousness. All of us are sitting here, but we're sitting in bodies that really aren't us. Although that's who we identify, generally, in the ordinary course of events. If you go up to some person, or if you get stopped, you're speeding, or you go through a stop sign, then the cop may stop you, right? And what do they want to do? They want to see your license and your registration. They want to know who you are. And what do they see on that license? A picture of your body, right? Your face, maybe smiling, maybe not. It has an age, it has a hair color, eye color, weight, and you have an address. That address is where the body lives, and you're in the body. So the point is that at every step in the ordinary course of events, this false ego is strengthened and encouraged, because that's how everyone is dealing with you. When you come to, but we're not the body. The body is constantly changing. We stay the same. The first lesson, chapter 2, when Krishna started speaking, right? He has this key verse. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. Now the word dhira there means someone who's thoughtful, who knows things as they are. And he's really speaking about Arjuna there. Arjuna is very disturbed at the prospect of not only his friends and relatives and teacher and grandfather figure dying, but that he's going to be instrumental in their death. Here's his beloved grandfather figure, Bhishma. The history is that Arjuna and his 4 brothers, known as the Pandavas. Yudhishthira is the eldest, then Arjuna, then Bhima, then the 2 twins. And they were sons of Pandu. Now, interestingly enough, he wasn't the biological father of any of them. He, his 2 wives were Kunti and Madri. Haribol, Mark. And Kunti received a benediction from Durvasa Muni when she was still very young. She was maybe 14, 15. Because she cooked very nicely for him. So he told her, you can now call any of the demigods you want, and they'll come. So she's a 15-year-old girl, you know. So when Durvasa had left, she tried it out. And she called the sun god. There's a painting of him. He's in the palace, and there's the sun god, pretty bright, you know. And he appears. So she didn't know what to say. I don't know if there was an exchange there, but the sun god informed her, yes, okay, but now that I've come, we have to have a child together. Kunti says, no, she's still a virgin. Can't. Don't worry. The child will be born. This is like part of the mystic power of these demigods. The child will be born from your ear, and nobody will know anything. In fact, he was born from the ear, and the word for ear in Sanskrit is Kṛṣṇa. So he was known as Kṛṣṇa, little baby child. So what to do with him? So think of the Bible. What happened with Moses? There wasn't a thing where was he put into the stream? Yeah. So she went to the stream, looked around, and had a nice little boat, put it in, put the baby in, and off he went down the stream, praying his welfare. So no one knew anything except her. So he was her first son, but no one knew that. He was eventually saved by a carpenter, and they pulled him out there, and he raised the boy. Now, miraculously, he was born, his little child, with built-in armor, indicating his future as a great Kshatriya. And in fact, he was practically the only one who was a better archer and a better fighter than Arjuna was. So anyway, that's a long story. So then, eventually Kunti got married to Pandu, and another wife was Madri. But anyway, this is the story. What happened was that they would go out into the forest, and he would practice hunting, because the Kshatriyas have to keep their archery skills, so they would kill dangerous animals in the forest. So anyway, he saw a deer, and he shot the deer, but the deer happened to be a Brahmin who had taken the form of a deer, mystic power, to have intercourse with his wife, who was also in the form of a deer, and they were going to have children. And maybe he must have killed the wife anyway, so he killed one of them, and then the Brahmin was furious. So he cursed Pandu. He said, if you ever have sex again with your wives, you'll die. So he couldn't have, so what to do? So Kunti said, okay, look, I have this power of calling these demigods. So I'll call the demigods, and I'll have your children. They'll be your children, your sons, and no one will know. So they did that. And the firstborn, I think, was Yudhishthira. Now, he was the son of Dharmaraj, the Yamaraj, the first one. So very righteous. Because Yamaraj is the judge of all the sinners and everything. So he's very well versed in all the laws. So Yudhishthira is very, very righteous and virtuous. They all were, but he is especially with. Second, I think, was Arjuna. I'm not sure. But he was the son of Indra. Bhima was the son of the wind god. Very powerful. Just like we had some very powerful wind. When the wind gets going, And Arjuna was very skilled in fighting. He was the greatest fighter. Bhima was very, very powerful. He was also a great fighter. And then you had the other wife, also had 2 other children. Sahadev and Nakula, I think the name, were the twins by these Ashwini Kumaras. They're little less prominent demigods. So they're all divine, but they're known as the Pandavas, the sons of Pandu, but none of them are actually his physical sons. So that's a little summary of it. But they're all very righteous, and they're all very dear to Krishna, and they were all great devotees. So Krishna was always watching out for them. There's a whole story. I won't get into it. So here we are in the Bhagavad Gita. Is part of the Mahabharata. And this war of Kurukshetra, known as the Battle of Kurukshetra, was building throughout the whole history. And that's another complicated thing I won't get into, but because let's see, there was this king named Vichitravirya, but he was kind of a wimp, so he couldn't be the king. So they had to have, so they called Vyasadeva. That's it, Vyasadeva. He was meant to impregnate Vichitravirya's wife, so that there would be a next generation who would take over the kingdom. So the first thing happens, he comes, and he's staying out in the forest. He's a great sage, so he's all overgrown with hair and everything. He's kind of scary looking. So he comes in, and the wife is scared, so she shuts her eyes. They have intercourse, and Dhritarashtra is born, but he's born blind because she was shutting her eyes. Yeah. So even though he's the eldest, he can't inherit the kingdom because he's blind. You see? So then came, okay, well, we have to have a king. So Vyasadeva came. The next wife, she didn't close her eyes, but she was so scared she turned white. So Pandu was born, and he has this very white complexion, but he could be the king. So he's next, but he's younger than Dhritarashtra, but Dhritarashtra is blind, so he couldn't really be the king. And then the third one, there was a maidservant who also came, and Vyasadeva impregnated her. And her son could not be the king, but he was very righteous. His name was Vidura, and he was the younger brother, and he saved the Pandavas in various ways. I won't get into the whole Mahabharata, but he was also very. So these 3 sons are critical in the whole Mahabharata. So anyway, to try to bring us up to the present. So what happened is that through various ways, Dhritarashtra, he had 50 sons. Was it 50 or 100? I forget. 100? Was it 100? Yeah, 100 is the usual standard. You can imagine what the wife went through. Anyway, has 100 sons. And they, when Pandu died, Dhritarashtra thought, well, why shouldn't I be the king? Why shouldn't my sons get the kingdom? I was supposed to be the king anyway, but I was blind. So my sons should get the kingdom, not Pandu's sons, because it's like this whole mix-up. So that's what is set up. And Duryodhana, who was the head of his sons, he was really into having the kingdom. So how to do it? Well, they had to kill the Pandavas. So there was all these attempts at murder, and they all failed because Krishna helped out in various places. So it goes on like that, and then there was they were actually running the kingdom, but they were challenged to a gambling match. And the Kshatriyas, if they're challenged to a gambling match or to a fight, they have to accept. Or they're not Kshatriyas; they lose their name. So Yudhishthira accepted, even though he knew that Duryodhana's friend, Shakuni, he was a cheater, and he was expert at cheating at dice, and so sure enough, they got cheated. So they lost everything. They lost their whole kingdom. They even lost their wife, and Krishna had to come and save her. They were trying to strip her naked in the assembly, which would have been a disaster. But Krishna provided unlimited sari so that they couldn't, no matter what they did, so that's another. So finally what happens, they're exiled. And they go off in exile for 14 years, I think, or 12 years. And then it has to be one more year where they stay incognito, and if they're found out, there's another 12 years. So anyway, they get through all of that, come back, and the battle is on. you know, then the whole thing is going to happen now. The battle for the rule of the earth really is what it is. And this is right before it happens. There's all these armies, millions of soldiers, elephants, horses, infantry. They're on this great plain called Kurukshetra. And Arjuna knows that there's friends and relatives on the other. He wants to see who's on the other side. So he asked Krishna. Krishna had volunteered to drive his chariot. He's God, but he's so friendly to Arjuna. He took a subordinate role. He's a servant, you know. So Arjuna says, please take the chariot into the no man's land between the army so I can see who's on the other side. And there he sees all his cousins and friends. He sees Bhishma Dev, his his grandfather, who he loves, and his teacher, Dronacharya, who taught him everything he knows about fighting, you know. So he gets cold feet. He doesn't want to fight. So what's the point of me fighting? Even if I win the kingdom, it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love. What kind of victory is that? I'll have to go to the forest, you know. But he's not suited for that, and he knows it's not the right thing. So finally, there's a critical verse in the second chapter where he surrenders to Krishna, because they're friends, you know. He's arguing back and forth with Krishna. He surrenders to him as a guru rather than as a friend. It's a very important change of relationship, because you can't argue with your spiritual master. He has to accept what he says. So he says, okay, karpan nidosho pahata swabhava prichami tvam dharma sammuda chetaha yakshe yaksyan nishtitam bruhitan me shishyasteham sharimam tvam papannam. Which is actually a verse that can also instruct us how to approach, because we don't know what to do for our own best interests. Our frame of reference is the body or the mind, but we're not the body or the mind. We're the soul. We don't even know that, basically. So we need instruction also from a higher source, obviously. So what Arjuna is saying is there, that by this miserly weakness caused by my sentimentality, I've lost my nature as a Kshatriya, a strong-willed Kshatriya. Upahata swabhava. Swabhava means your natural temperament. I've lost that. So I'm asking you, Karpan nidoto bhita pada prichami tvam dharma samuda cheta. And it's a very key phrase. I'm bewildered about what's the right thing to do. What is dharmic, what is virtuous here. I'm thinking that I don't want to kill my relatives, I love them so much, you know. And so I realize I want to act on the basis of that sentiment, but that's not according to what you want, Krishna. And I know that you are, you know, the origin of all Dharma. You're the Supreme Personality. So I'm at loggerheads with you, and I want you to tell me for sure what's the best thing for me. Yakshayaksyan nishtitam bruhitan me. Shishyaste, I am your shishya now. I am your disciple, not just your friend. So I'm ready to hear. Shishya Trump papannam. Key word. Papannam, I surrender. I surrender my will to you. You know. And then Krishna starts instructing, and one of the first verses he instructs is the one I just gave you, Dehi nosmin yata dehi. So what that means is that the embodied soul, called the Dehina, passes through different stages of the body. The body is constantly changing, and the soul, that particle of consciousness, irreducible, which he will then explain in many verses, is eternal, never born, never dies. We're passing through, and the body's changing, and each time we change bodies, we all have the experience. You grow older, then you change your conception of who you are. You know, when you're a kid, I'm not 7 years old anymore. I'm 7.5. And, right? Isn't it? So I get a little more status, right? So you identify, you did. But it continues into adulthood, too. But that's a great illusion. None of us are the body. I made a little verse out of it. Because the thing about the body is that, you know, we identify with it, we try to help it, we try to enjoy, but eventually it betrays us. You get old, or maybe you die young, but whatever it is, there's a time limit. And then it's no longer with you, it's no longer who you are. So then what happens to you? That's the key. We don't know. So, but we learn from the Bhagavad Gita that our next body is determined by what we do in this body. The acts we perform and the mentality we cultivate determine whether just exactly what we're going to get. Whether it'll be human being or superhuman being or lower than human. And in this age of Kali, when there's so much confusion and temptation, and the chances are very high we'll lose the human form if we just go with the flow. And so this whole Bhagavad Gita is built around this idea of, okay, we need to hear, just like Arjuna does, what is real Dharma, and what is the best thing we can do for ourselves and for everyone else. What is my next best body? Well, the next best body, if you understand and you believe Prabhupada and all the acharyas in the body, is that we don't want to get another material body. We don't want a body made of flesh and blood and bone and all these things that can go so wrong, and after some time you realize they do go wrong, you know, and it becomes then whatever you have your whole life, all of the relationships, I got so many degrees and honors, money and this, and it's all going to stay here, and where am I going? Most people think I don't go anywhere. That's the end of it, but it's not it. At the first lesson, no. You're eternal. Krishna said in the Jayate, Mriyate, Vakadachan, Nayam Budvaba Vidava Nabuya, Arjo Nityik Shashvatam Yo Purano, Nahanyadehanyamane Sharire. Very key verse. For the soul, there is never birth nor death at any time. Not Jayate, Namriyate, Vakadachan. It doesn't come into being. There are not a lot of souls coming into being and going out of being. No, we're all as eternal as Krishna is, with unlimited. It's trillions and billions of us. Aja, unborn. Aja, Nitya, eternal. Shashvata, permanent. Purana, ancient. Nahanyate hanamane shiriri. When the body finally falls, and let's face it, it will, every one of us, we don't die. And so I made a little poem out of it. Every body dies. Every body. Every space body dies. Every body dies, nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's basically the whole the whole message of the Hare Krishna movement. That's the key to it. So that Krishna is more or less saying that, you know. So what's going on now in this chapter, to go back to the present, how we act is the whole thing. What the consciousness we create, and how we act in this world, and they're very intimately related, obviously, is going to determine our next birth. And so what we need is knowledge, how to act and how to think, what consciousness to cultivate, so that we'll get the best next body. The best next body is not a mystery. It's not a material body. Prabhupada's famous phrase, go back home, back to Godhead. Back home, back to Godhead. We're not home. Even if we somehow get a nice house here in San Diego and we live here for 35 years, you know, it can never be your home. Eventually you get evicted. Because you're not renting or owning a house, you're renting a body. And eventually you get evicted from the body, and where do we go? So there's no point in hoping, there's no hope really for a permanent happy condition on the material plane. It's a false hope. The whole thing is a huge, what can I say, a con job by Maya Devi, you know? That she's trying to convince you, this is her job, thankless task, to convince you that yes, I can be happy here if I just do this, just do this, just do this. But you can't. Because what's real happiness is, I'm not going to die anymore. I'm not getting old. No more disease. That's a basis of the happiness. But the positive happiness is eternal play. Eternal play. No more work. Eternal play with God in the spiritual world, in an ideal body, young, beautiful. You know, it could be male, could be female, whatever is your rasa, you know, with Krishna. And it's ever fresh. No day is the same. There's no routine. Krishna, can we do something else instead of herd the cows? No. There's so much variety just in that. Because they don't really herd the cows. They go out, take the cows, they graze, and the boys play. And they do something. It's unlimited. So that's what we're aiming for. But we have to first understand, Krishna says, Evam gyatva kritam karma. What did he say? There's no work that affects me. Well, what does what does it have to do with us? The point is, if we dovetail our activities with Krishna's, meaning that what his desires are, if they make our desires, then no work will bind us either. There will be there's no fruit of work there. It's all a basis of love. Love, the purest love is a mother for the child, newborn child, right? There's no deal that the mother makes. Okay, look, if you smile 6 times, then I'll feed you. Otherwise, it's boring. No, right? It's always, how can I make this little baby comfortable, happy, secure? That's the meditation of the mother. That's selfless love. You take pleasure in the pleasure of the beloved. That's the purest love. And when we can understand that and try to do that for Krishna. Now, we may not know what's going on. We'll have a kirtan at 8:15, right? And we'll chant Hare Krishna. We don't know why is that. If when we chant with little concentration, enthusiasm, there's some pleasure there. There's some experience there. It's a powerful mantra. What that is a little taste of what it means to please Krishna. He's very pleased when he hears His holy name, just as we are. If you walk into a room, Abby says, "Oh, look who's here! It's Abby, and she did this and this and this, and here's some honors." So, oh, okay, that's cool. So the idea is that Krishna likes that. He doesn't really need our glorification. He's got millions of people, but it's good for us because we are part and parcel of Krishna. This is the most amazing thing. We are a divine spark of consciousness. And our natural happy situation is serving the whole, just like the hand, right? Our body has so many limbs. So this hand is a proper hand, and it's perfectly useful when it does what I want. I don't even think, okay, hand, now go over here and get the water that they forgot to put over here. And, and it doesn't. Now, if it doesn't do that, it's causing trouble. Maybe I can do something, go to the doctor and find out, oh, you got paralysis in your hand. All right, it's not. But now we're kind of paralyzed hands. We're not doing what Krishna wants. And so we're troubled. So we're put into the material world. But we're not eternally damned or faulty. We can rectify it by learning how to do those things that please Krishna. And how do we know? The spiritual master. If we could do that, Prabhupada came to America, he started chanting Hare Krishna, those fortunate souls who were curious enough to get involved and start chanting. Prabhupada was so pleased, so ecstatic to finally get some traction in America. If you study the incredible adventure of how he started this movement in 1965-66, it was pretty tough going at first. He didn't have his own place, he didn't have his own students, it was tough, but he didn't give up. Until finally Krishna blessed him with that little place down in Lower East Side, he found some willing ears and willing hands to help. And they became blissed out, They were able to give up the drugs, which ultimately is a real dead end, and stay high forever. They asked Prabhupada, can we print this? Because they're in the middle of this, the 60s, everybody's dropping acid and doing all this. People are interested in getting high, So we'll print up this little pamphlet, Stay High Forever, because they were experiencing how you get a natural high from chanting Hare Krishna. And there's no, come down, there's no damage, it's all very wholesome. So they did that and they were attracted people, So why did it expand? How does it, and it's still expanding? Because it's genuine. It puts you in genuine touch with the reservoir of pleasure. There was a nice little pamphlet, Krishna is the unlimited and inexhaustible reservoir of pleasure. And He's in our heart. We just need to learn how to contact that, to access that pleasure. And it comes through chanting and hearing and serving. And taking pleasure in not only serving Krishna, but serving His devotees. That's why ideally a Krishna conscious community is a place of, it's a divine oasis in the middle of a material world, where there's all these egos fighting, what's mine, what's, like this. And so Krishna's teaching it. So if one understands this, there's no work that affects me, do I aspire for the fruits of action. So Krishna is not a fruitive actor. He's also enjoying giving His servants a chance to serve Him and thus enjoy. You know what I mean? Krishna is also in that enjoying that feeling of love, where the beloved is pleased because of your association like that. So that is our original nature, and that's the real attraction of Krishna consciousness. All liberated souls in ancient times act with understanding of my transcendental nature, therefore you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. In other words, he's telling Arjuna, transcend your emotional attachment for those on the other side. Understand that yes, their bodies will die, but they will be exalted. Bhishma Dev is a Mahajan. He's on the other side for whether I don't go into the reasons that, but he's completely sympathetic with the Pandavas. And then during the battle, he dies, very dramatically. You know, he had a blessing from his father. We'll get into that story. How he could die at will. If he didn't want to die, he didn't have to die. So he's lying there in a bed of arrows, means shot through with arrows on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So what happens? Krishna comes there to see him. The Pandavas are there, Arjuna's there, you know, and he chants these beautiful prayers. He's at the point where he's going to leave at his own will, and he starts these beautiful prayers in the Bhagavatam, 9th chapter, 1st canto. Tribhavana kamanang tamalavanang tamakadagaudavarambadang dadani amvapadalakakulavatananam jam vijayaske ratadastumena. He has like 6 or 8 of those, you know. And what does it mean? Tribhavana kamanam. Oh, here's my beautiful Krishna. He's more beautiful, the most beautiful in all 3 worlds. Tribhavana kamanam, tamalavanam, little darkish like a tamal tree. Ravikata golda varambadang dadhane vapa. His body is covered with these golden silken garments that are shining like the sun. Ravikata golda varambadang. Vapa alaka kulavatananabdam. Beautiful lotus face surrounded by those blackish hair. He's meditating on Krishna. He's the friend of the victor. You know, we have these 2 Vijayas. We have Vijay, who came back for something, you know, a week. So he's here. And we have Vijay Krishna. What is this Vijay? Vijay means the victor. It's a name for Arjuna. Jaya, Jai Jai. We say Jai all the time. It means victories. Vijay is one who is the victor. So here's Krishna, who's the friend of the victor, meaning a friend of Arjuna. Vijayasake. Now, here's the key 3. What is he praying for? Ratarastume navajya. May my attraction be drawn unto him without being diverted anywhere else. This is the prayer we can have too. The problem is we're attracted to all these other things. You know, we've developed this attraction, but that takes our mind away from Krishna. But Krishna is completely fulfilling if we just get attraction for Krishna, and he's all attractive. That's what his name means. Think of him, chant his name, read about him, hear about him, serve him. Then let my attraction be drawn to Krishna without being diverted to anyone else. This is a prayer that we can utter also. And they give us that boon, you know. So that's the perfection. And there's, you know, Bhishma Dev lying on the bed of arrows, but he's in ecstasy, seeing Krishna right next to him there. He remembers the gopis and everything, the 6 or 8 prayers, wonderful prayers. So this is what Krishna is saying here, is that you act in the same way without any fruit of desire, but simply the desire to please me, and that there will be no karma. Your karma is burned up. That's not a fruit of activity. And the more that we can act, and it's not fruitive, those for Krishna, then the more that we're clearing our path back to Godhead. What keeps us here? What keeps us here is our unfulfilled desires and our reactions from our karmic activities that we have to pay for. They haven't been eradicated by bhakti. Bhakti is so powerful. You chant a few names, the next kirtan we have, you just destroyed all your bad karma and your good karma. You know, you don't want good karma, because that means you have to come back and enjoy, but you're still back here in the material world. We don't want any karma. And that's what chanting does for you, and serving. It's so powerful and wonderful. And if we do it with knowledge, we'll be very eager to, you know, take part in it, because it's all good and it's free. All right, I've kind of gone off the reservation a little bit. So let's go to text 16. Question. Well, the mic is right behind your head. Just turn it on.
I actually kind of maybe have a comment, and then you would comment on it, please.
Sure.
As we were reading the passage and you were speaking, I thought of how when I first began to read the Bhagavad Gita, I realized how much I was suffering through my work. And of course, my first thought was to quit because to alleviate the suffering.
Yeah.
But if I'm understanding this passage correctly, assuming that it's somewhat noble work, the answer is not to relieve the suffering through quitting. It's to go through this. It's to eliminate the fruitive desires attached to it.
Yes, that is very interesting. You mentioned that because I was just reading. You know Kanchan Bala? Kanchan. There's one of our students here is named Kanchan Bala. She joined in 1966, back in the early days, and her husband died last year, passed away. Madhusudan, I don't know if you know that, from COVID. But she and her daughter, she lives with her daughter, they put together a book about Madhusudan, and it has the writings, and I was just reading her story of how she came to Krishna. Huh? It's in print. They gave me a copy. How many? Yeah, you can ask her how to get one. Yeah, and it's such an endearing story. She's like 16 years old. You know, she's in high school, and she's attracted to, and she eventually goes to the 26 Second Avenue. You know. Yes, yes, yeah. And it's such a wonderful story how she got attracted and joined, and Prabhupada wrote her this wonderful letter, and it was this whole thing about quitting the job, you know. And it wasn't her, some of the other students there. And Prabhupada said, no, don't quit the job. You know, first of all, I think Satsarup and Brahmananda, they were both working for the city at welfare or teachers or something like that. And there was no money, you know. They needed to pay the rent in the store and everything. So, but no, you keep doing your job, but you try to be as Krishna conscious on the job, and you give the money to Krishna. You give your paycheck to Krishna. So Steve, that later to be Satsarup Das Goswami, he asked, well, how can I give it to Krishna? You should just give it to me, and I'll give it to Krishna. Okay. And that was used to, you know, pay the rent and buy the boga to play the feast. You know, in other words, how are we going to sustain the whole thing? So, but the point is that it becomes an act of devotion. It's a sacred thing when you're able to do that. So, but you have to sustain yourself. So the idea is, well, okay, as much as you can, you know, whatever. What do they say? Money that, you know, it's free, that you can spend, decide on what to spend on, then try to give it for the propagation of Krishna consciousness. And that's so pleasing to Krishna, you know, that you're actually doing that. And it becomes, I remember I was fortunate, I had been working for a year before I joined, and I had a little bank account, you know. And eventually it got impossible. I'm going into all that. And so I was going to join. So I had $1,500 saved. This was in 1973. So you can multiply it by about 4 or 5, to today's money at least. And I gave it. And I felt great about it. And they felt great about it. And they were actually, this is a great story. They were saving in order to buy a place in Manhattan. You can imagine what that would be. And Prabhupada was encouraging them and everything. So they had a fair amount of money saved, and but then Prabhupada called them up or wrote them and said, okay, take all the money and give it to India, because they're going to buy the land for the Juhu temple, for the Bombay temple. It's, you know, a very important temple. So the devotees wouldn't say, oh boy, women cheated. No, they said, okay, Prabhupada wants it, you know, that was where it was destined to go. And the temple was bought, which was a very key temple, you know the story. And then they kept collecting, and eventually they did get a place in Manhattan. I lived there on 52nd Street, 55th Street, on the west side of Manhattan. It was 11 stories high. Prabhupada visited there. He was very happy to see it. Unfortunately, it was too expensive to sustain. The heating alone was $13,000 a month in this season, in the winter season. So they had to sell it. They got a Brooklyn temple, but that place in Brooklyn now is worth $60–70 million because of the gentrification in Brooklyn. So, and so the point is that the work is there, but what counts is the motive, is what you do. So you can, continue in your job, but change the consciousness that you're doing it with. Try to integrate chant. I started chanting 2 rounds a day. And I was, chanting whenever I could. I had a hospital job, and reading, and visiting the temple, as you're doing. and just integrate Krishna consciousness. There's one very nice verse that Prabhupada would always quote. Boy, these classes is too short. And there's a wonderful conversation between Lord Chaitanya and one of his intimate associates named Ramananda Roy. And Lord Chaitanya takes the role of the disciple. And this Ramananda Roy says, okay, I want to hear from you. I'm going to ask you questions, you know. And Ramananda Roy is a little bit leery. He says, oh, he's the Supreme Personality of God, and Lord Chaitanya, how can I be the guru? So Lord Chaitanya says, Kiba vipa kimanasi shuddha keninoye Krishna tattva se guru hoy. Whether one is a Brahmin or one is a sannyasi or even a Shudra, if he knows the science of God, not the science of Krishna, then he can be the guru. So Ramananda Roy agreed. And Lord Chaitanya kept asking him questions. There's this nice little formula they can all remember. Sadhana and sadhya. Sadhya is the goal, and sadhana is how to get there. Now that applies to material things too. Suppose I want to become a car mechanic. Oh boy, I'll work with my favorite objects, cars, and I'll be able to, make a living. Well, what do I do? Okay, well, you got to go get a job in a garage, and you just do whatever they want, and they'll train you up, right? You have to go where people know how to fix cars. And eventually, okay, that's the sadhana, and then you get to be sadhya. Okay, now Bill, you can work on you can change the tires, to do that, and gradually you get more responsibility. So similarly, there's the sadhya and the sadhana of bhakti. And if we are simply trying to follow the instructions Srila Prabhupada has given, and those of his students who are more experienced, and so in this conversation, Ramananda Roy gives all kinds of answers to what's the sadhana. And Lord says, that's good, but not good enough. It's external. Keep going. Then when he says, okay, he has one answer, and he said, yes, this is good, and is it pertinent to your question? This is a prayer of Brahma where he says, he's speaking to little Krishna, who he challenged. He says, Gyane piyasam udapasya namanda eva jivanti sanmukaditam bhavadiya vartam stane stitak shuddhikatam tanavan manobar ye prayaso ajatizo bhatitai srilokim. He says that give up speculation and simply hear from the great souls. When we come to Bhagavad Gita class, we're hearing from the greatest soul, from Krishna, and from Prabhupada. That's I'm just trying to repeat their words so you can understand. So, and don't do anything radical. You don't have to take sannyas. You don't have to go to Himalayas. Add this hearing, and try to follow the instructions that you're hearing. Try to absorb the knowledge. And follow these instructions with your body, mind, and words. In other words, there's something to do, how to live. Also, repeat them and think about them with others. And if you follow this path, ultimately you will be able to conquer Krishna. What? Krishna is Ajita. You can't conquer Krishna. But yes, you can. With love. He agrees to be conquered by love. In other words, you reach the goal of life. Yeah. His mother conquered him. She tied him up. It's right there. I'm looking at the picture. See? She's tying him up. That's Krishna. He allows himself to be tied by the love. So that's the answer. And we're unfortunately out of time. So we will resume on Monday. Quick poem. Okay. Don't love the body. Just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids at home. At every moment, see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari. Okay, so now we'll have a kirtan. Everyone knows the words, I hope.